everyone. Welcome to Travelin with Bones, episode 7 with Tai Carpenter, the president of Don't Shoot PDX. How are you doing, Tai?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Sam. This is dope.
Yeah, it's been a while. We've seen each other in quite a few years.
Yeah, we've just been keeping in touch virtually, which is very fitting, I think, because, 2020 is just it's sort of like that now.
Yeah, definitely a whole new way of having a social life, I suppose, if that's what you want to call it. um, so, so Tai, I know you growing up as a fellow Portlander, but now, and I've been involved with the movement on a different spectrum, and now we kind of met into a middle ground in a way. And you are now the president of Don't Shoot PDX. Am I right?
Yeah, that happened this summer. I pretty much took over because my mom had been running it for a while, and she's a grandma now. And the fact that I'm here, I felt like I had more time for it, and I wanted her to be able to like dive into a new, chapter of herself. It's like she's been on the streets and like fighting for justice and fighting for so many families for so many years. She's been going back and forth to the Capitol, back and forth to DC, meeting with the president and the first lady, like meeting with so many people to make so many things happen. And she's influenced policy. And I think that's really amazing. And I think that she deserves a break. So I was just like, all right, mom, like it's time for you to become a grandma. I'm here to you can teach me the ways. I've been with Don't Shoot Portland from afar because I was living in Texas and I was living in Denver. And I was always helping out, like doing newsletters and press releases and whatnot when we needed it. But now that I'm physically here, I wanted to be able to, take a bigger part.
Yeah. And so for the listeners and people that aren't aware, what does Don't Shoot PDX really do for the community in Portland?
So, and first of all, it was started by my mom, Teressa Raiford. So that's something that a lot of people don't know. Like that's my mom. And it started because of gang violence and the lack of investigation around people who are victims of gun violence, police brutality. From an incident that happened with my little cousin who was murdered, my mom started advocating for herself and our family, trying to figure out why he was failed by our system. And through a series of audits and being able to be in those environments where you're testifying in City Hall and you're actually going to the work committee meetings and you're on all these committees that they want you to sign up to so that you can be as close as possible to the people that are in charge of our city so that you can demand answers. Once she realized that the system wasn't designed that way, I think it just sort of it revealed a larger picture of racism in America and discrimination in America, and how by educating ourselves we can we can use that knowledge as a weapon against it, and we can rise up and use our voices. So we do a lot of community advocacy that ranges from legal referral clinics, where we have a lot of lawyers that we use to help folks that are doing dealing with domestic violence, family issues, tenant rights. We do a lot of online workshops. They were in person at first. We were doing workshops with the City of Portland Archives. So that's a really big part of history. We love to incorporate Oregon's past into the future and the present of what we have so that we can see the history of these tools and how the system was built to sort of oppress instead of enrich and empower. So we do community advocacy to sort of give back. That involves feeding, clothing, giving out free books to kids, hygiene items, helping our unsheltered neighbors. It's just been so different with 2020 because usually this is like a year, our programming is year long round. So we've got like spring breakout. During spring break, when a lot of kids, their parents are, a lot of parents can't have their kids at home for that full week. It's a lot for them to do. Resources are stretched thin, et cetera. We offer childcare. We do a lot of important programming during that week. to enrich the kids and educate them about different Black leaders, different Black scholars and writers and artists. We've also had a partnership with the Portland Art Museum in the past where we put on exhibitions. And that's, to me, art is just a really powerful tool for social change. And I think that it's especially being put into the hands of the youth. We have to learn to start taking up space. It teaches kids that that there is a place for them in elitist sort of institutions. We also break the stigma of like not being allowed to touch anything, like if you go into a museum or the archives, it's like this very strange environment. Or I feel like as a kid, I was taught to feel strange in those environments because I was a Black kid and like a really nice, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And just being a kid in general, there's like some discrimination where people don't really let kids get hands-on with things, but they're our future. So my mom is really big on doing direct impact with the youth. So the youth lead all of our marches. The youth, we teach them how to screen print, how to make tote bags, they make zines. We do a lot of different art programming.
My heroes. So that's dope. So, I know you from us being kids. I actually didn't know Teressa Raiford was your mom until like 3 months into my time back in Portland, probably until August. So was your mom, when we were growing up, was your mom involved with politics?
No, she was in Texas.
Okay.
So when I was younger, it was me, my brother, and my mom. My mom moved away from Portland. She became a banker at Bank of America. She's a single mom, working full time. It was just me and my brother, pretty much like, taking care of each other. She would come home. Like we were just like such a family unit. Like I just remember it being us three against the world. And she was so busy working that when she came to Portland, she was like, I'm never going back to Portland. Like, I just want to, build up for my family. And she wanted to leave the trauma behind that happens when you grow up, you're raised in a place like Portland, you're put through the foster care system. There's so many inequities in this city. It's unreal. So she moved us away. And when my little cousin was murdered, she went back for his funeral and she literally packed a small suitcase and she never came back. So she never came back to Texas after that. She ended up being like stuck here because of the trauma. When she came for his funeral, she didn't understand that there was like, it's just once you've been impacted by something like that, I think that it's hard to let go and just accept like, oh, he was a great kid. He was getting really good grades. He was in all of the programming that the city, all the community partnerships that the city has stakeholders in, and a lot of those community partnerships, they're actually surveillance. They're actually working with the police to, try to cultivate these relationships in Black and brown communities as if we need to be around more police, as if community policing is the answer, basically, you know what I mean? But we all know that that just means you're surveilling these kids and you're also projecting future criminals because you need to rely on future criminals to get your fucking agenda done or whatever. So yeah, my mom left for his funeral and never came back. And then eventually I moved to Austin because I was still in Dallas. And once my mom moved and my brother ended up moving up there too, I was like, I'm not moving back to Portland. I was like, I'm not doing it. I was like, I'm not doing it. And then here I am, but it's okay.
So growing up, like we knew each other in our teenage years, and we knew each other as just like I'm not sure about your income, but like for like the majority of our friends and myself, we were low income North Portland kids. And I struggled a lot in North Portland. I struggled in school. I struggled with the police myself. I got pulled over all the time and just all the things, but I was also getting in a lot of trouble. But we never really had that discussion growing up about race, right? And we never and if anything, us kids were probably insensitive to the whole entire subject because we did not have the education behind it. So what was your experience growing up in North Portland as an African-American woman?
I mean, I left Portland when I was probably like, I want to say I was like 8, but I might have been younger than that actually. So when I came back. So,
okay.
And I went to Texas with my mom. So I don't really remember much like growing up childhood wise. And then when I came back for high school in Roosevelt, that's when I noticed, like, I guess Texas has a lot of Black people. So I wasn't really noticing. When I moved back to Portland, I was being stared at often. Like I was always like, I remember just feeling like I was being scrutinized, like under a telescope. And I was like, why am I, like, I would feel like something was like wrong, like on my face, or something was like weird, or like, I literally remember feeling like, oh, there must be something like on my t-shirt, or there must be something like my shoes are untied. And once I started realizing that it was just the feeling that you have living in Portland, it was just like, I mean, it's crazy. It's fucked up to realize that. Like, I couldn't wait to leave once I mean, that was the freshman year. Yeah, freshman year of Roosevelt is when we met. And after that, like, I left. I was there living with my grandma at the time because my mom was still in Texas. I came up to spend a summer with my mom, with my grandma and my dad, who still lived in Portland. Like, all of my family still lives here. So I just came up for a summer and I was like, actually, I do want to stay and do a year of school. And then I was like, I can't wait to get out of here, because I literally don't remember ever feeling like that in my life, where I was like being scrutinized and I couldn't figure out why. Like, in Texas, everyone is kind of like, hello, how you doing? Like, even if they're like passing by, you don't even have time enough to be like, oh, I'm doing good, how are you? You know, it's like people just, hello, how are you? Hello, how are you? Hello, hello, hello. Like, just so nice and friendly. So when I moved here, like, I really felt the difference. And it was, yeah, it's sad. It's messed up. And also another thing I noticed is, even though, we're different races, and we didn't talk about racism when we were hanging out when we were younger. I think it was just like poverty was the connector. You know what I mean? Like, I remember just leaving school because we didn't have anywhere to go after that. We would hang out in coffee shops until it was like late night, because we knew that nobody really cared about where we were going. Like, my grandma was the only one I remember that I would be like, oh, my grandma wants me to come home. And all of our homies would like walk from St. John's Square, walk me all the way down Lombard to my grandma's house on West Stana, and then be like, all right, bye. And like, they would, like, we'd all mob together down the street. You know, we'd all walk to this place, grab Johnny from his parents' house, walk down here, grab Bobby, saw him somewhere, like, and you just all mob together as you collect your friends. And I think it was just the fact that St. John's is kind of like a neighborhood that seems like detached from the rest of Portland. Like, I don't know what it is, but I think a lot of people in that area, they feel disenfranchised from the rest of Portland, because there's not really there's no resources for folks out there.
What year did Don't Shoot PDX start?
I want to say it was 2010-ish.
Oh,
2010. Okay. Yeah, I gotta think. I mean, that's when we got, I think that's when we were, when we got our nonprofit status. I should actually have this written down, but it's when my cousin was murdered that my mom started doing all the advocacy. And then she was arrested at a protest, and she started the nonprofit then, once she was acquitted. So, I would say 2010. Yeah, let's just.
2010. How has it evolved over the years? Like, you talked about how it started, and so with the movement, and ever since George Floyd's death, how has your humanitarian and mutual aid work with Don't Shoot evolved since his murder?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is we got, along with COVID, just having to readjust all of our programming to be online was like really hard. And then the City of Archives, they've been closed for a while, so we couldn't do that anymore. We had a lot of museum partnerships we were ready to do. So instead of doing that type of programming, we actually immediately turned to mutual aid. Yeah, so once, I think it was April, we have a long list of seniors and elderly folks that we've advocated for through tenant rights, because a lot of these low income housing units, like a lot of the facilities like Reach and other lower income properties, they have issues, obviously. They don't really treat their residents very well. So we do have a lot of folks that we advocate for who are part of our programming. And once COVID first hit, a lot of people were afraid to go to the grocery store. people were afraid to like leave their house for days at a time. Like I still remember that first couple, you know, where people were really actually taking it seriously. Unfortunately, we could have just kept with that and we probably wouldn't be where we are now. But anyway, so we started out delivering meals, and that was April and May. We were just delivering PPE supplies, hygiene supplies. And then once George Floyd was murdered and the protests immediately happened, we started grabbing a bunch of first aid kit supplies. We were having people show up to grab banners. We had posters that we had been screen printing at PNCA. We started giving those out and making those available for download so people could like print their own. We ordered a shit ton of megaphones. I think we spent like a couple $1,000s in megaphones just that first couple of weeks. There's like, it's just so weird when you think back on like May and June and July. It's such a blur. And I know you know what I'm talking about because like you were out there every single day. It's like I don't even remember. Like when I start to think back to it, my mind gets fuzzy because I'm like, oh wow, like that was just crazy. It was just a whirlwind of people. Like, and then you know, as soon as the protests happened, we had folks, you know, talking about the tear gas, and they were being affected in their homes. People were getting tear gas in their houses. People were missing their periods. People were getting like beat up by police, tackled by police, like. So immediately we were busier than I think we had ever had. Like, I don't even know if we were ready for it. I was up like 24 hours a day checking people, like people sending us, you know, help. Here's a video. My friend was arrested. I don't know where they took him. Help. Like I've been being, you know, targeted by all, you know, so many of the hate crimes were like an uptick. We were also dealing with a lot of domestic abuse. During COVID, during the first weeks of like isolation, people without places to go, but needing advocacy. So that was really hard. It was just like immediately everyone was in need of help. So it was just like, it was really sad. And then just the energy of the protests, and we started getting like an influx of donations, like from just, we had no idea what was going on. And that's when it was like the first couple days of George Floyd's murder where people were like, what can I do? How can I help? Like, so I think people were just donating to our work. And that actually allowed us to file the first lawsuit on June 5th against the indiscriminate use of tear gas. And that's before people were even talking about how riot control agents are just detrimental and to our environment and our pets and our bodies. And, you know, just talking about it, I'm like, that was just so like atrocious. It was just so heartbreaking to see every night, you know, and it's still happening. But yeah, the lawsuits were a very big deal because we wanted to be able to take action, and we wanted to do it in a way to where we weren't waiting for pro bono lawyers to come in and help us. We weren't waiting for someone else to say that this was harming us. Like we've been saying, like, this is bad, this is wrong, stop killing us. We've been saying that for years, but people weren't paying attention until we had the power to do so in the court of law. And now people are saying that the ruling is historic because it marks the first time that Black Lives Matter protesters have actually successfully like been able to do this. And it's sad because it took a while, even when they were blatantly ignoring the tear gas ban. It's just showing to me, that's just more powerful than anything because it shows that they didn't care about the law. It shows that they really just wanted to hurt people. They didn't care that we won the ban, and that a lot of people have never even been able to see a ban against police officers. Like a lot of the lawyers, they're like, we've never seen this done before. This is amazing. But that's what's scary is the fact that they were willing to do anything to continue to hurt people. They don't care if it's going to cost them their jobs. They don't care if their faces are on every news screen and everyone's phones and everyone's tablets as people will see the live streams and how they're attacking people every night. When the feds came, they were excited. They had more people to join in on, like, and I know you know what I'm talking about because the aggression of those officers is like, it's very real. It's so scary because it's not just like I'm following orders. It's like they can't wait to be able to attack people.
Yeah, and eagerness in their eyes.
Yeah, and that's why when the night curfew first happened, and I'm just like, this is evil because you're targeting people now. And we know that during the day, when people are protesting at night, that's when it's scarier, because they know that they're covered in darkness, they're shielded from that. They feel like that gives them an excuse to go out and beat people because they're past the curfew. That was basically like a pass on more violence. So, you know, when Hardesty passed that, I'm just like, yeah, I don't know how anyone can actually support her. Not every person that looks like us is for us, but you know, I digress.
Yeah, that's definitely that's a topic that's through the movement often. So for the listeners to like, so for context, they started using riot control agents in Portland more so than anywhere else in the country. I was on the front lines. I actually filed with your case for a couple incidences. One, when a cop tried to beat me with a baton and I escaped, and they fucked up my ankle on the way down. And then the second time was when the feds were here and they started using gas without serial numbers or dates on it, so we don't actually know what kind of gas it is. I know that y'all were looking into that. I'm not sure if you got anywhere with that, but one night I had been affected by the tear gas prior, but one night I decided to go all the way up front because I had a full face. But this is before we knew about the filters and different kind of filters. So I had a paper filter, which doesn't do shit to CS or CN gas. Especially if it's expired. And I was up front while one of my comrades held a shield in front of me to stop the the impact ammunition from hitting me. And while I did eye washes on people that didn't have masks, and I started getting overwhelmed, so we went back to the medic van, and I actually ended up puking and just all the mucous membranes were just bleeding out whatever they could at the time, and I almost passed out, and I actually ended up puking for hours and hours. I was overwhelmed and in the most pain I've ever been in. There's a YouTube video on it if you scroll down on my website. But this was a slightly traumatizing episode that I didn't even realize would follow me later. A month after that, I was at a protest, and the smell of CS gas made me flutter, so I left. I was 2 miles away, and something that triggered me, and I actually had an incident where I felt my eyes were watering and I felt tear gas, and I was overwhelmed and I couldn't breathe, and all the tear ducts were flooding tears, and a nose was running and everything. And I had a combat soldier like PTSD episode where I had to pull over and I couldn't even see, and all I saw was gas that wasn't even there, and I was miles away from the incident. So this is just one story of so many, as there was thousands of us fighting against these feds for weeks on end. So I think it's really important for the case that y'all put on against them. So did this case, it was a compilation of different people's stories, is that right?
Yes.
And so you sued the city over it?
Yeah, the city of Portland.
Okay, and where is that money reallocating to?
Huh?
Where is the money from the case going to?
Oh, I don't think we're at that point yet. I think we still have to wait on the next move from our lawyers.
I see.
But right now, all the money that's been put into it is from Don't Shoot Portland. None of it is like pro bono work or anything.
Yeah.
Dope. So
dope.
It's crazy. I mean, we're trying to push it as far as we can, because the fact that once we started doing that, like we were contacted by Physicians for Human Rights. The case actually got their attention. So they're like, oh, wow, this is a big deal. Like the riot control agents, this is a big, and I'm like, how do people not understand that what we're saying is true? Like people are missing their periods. People are having trauma and PTSD from this. Like this isn't just, oh, well, they shouldn't have been protesting. I think it actually brought this into an actual, people weren't paying attention. It gave them new perspectives to show that this was like I'm like losing the word for it, but it was, just uncalled for, indiscriminate, excessive uses of force.
Very excessive. And it's just, I've seen so many people beaten, and just, I watched African-American young male, I don't know, couldn't have been older than 20, get thrown into a van, a cop van, a paddy wagon, taken out, beaten, tossed around, and then thrown back into the paddy wagon just to put as an example during a protest over by the North Precinct. And this is just one display of this police brutality and how much they're enjoying it.
Yeah, it's sickening. Like, I mean, the entire PPB at this point, it's like there's not a single officer that hasn't had one incident like this on his record. I wouldn't believe it, honestly.
So is Don't Shoot a PDX as a whole, and if you can't answer this, maybe answer this for yourself, are y'all for defunding the police or abolishing the police?
Abolish.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think we need to disband that shit. And that's not just a personal opinion. That's all of our opinions. It's proven that reform doesn't work. It's like Portland is a type of place I would love the idea of reform because they want to appear progressive in a global city. But that's what we see is that that's insidious. It's as insidious as it gets.
Agreed. I am right there with you. And yeah, so what is in store for you and Don't Shoot for 2021?
Well, right now we're doing meals every Friday through the end of January. So we've been feeding like 200 families every week, which is awesome. I think in addition to that, we've got the archives are going to be back up. So we're going to start doing archival workshops again, which I'm really excited about because I think that literally history is the proof that we use to protest. You know what I mean? Like we need that. So I would love to start that up again. And then we've got our Reclaim MLK March in January. We do it every year. And yeah, I hope that you will come with us.
You know it. What date is that?
18th.
January 18th. And where are y'all starting? Do you have that?
Well, I'm not gonna tell nobody.
Okay, that's fair.
But I'll tell you later.
Okay, that sounds good. Dope. All right. Well, how can listeners and readers support Don't Shoot? How can they donate?
So don'tshootpdx.org is where our newsletter is. Please sign up for the newsletter. Please donate and just honestly, our newsletter is going to be popping with all the virtual webinars. So even if you're not in Portland, wherever you are, you can still follow and check out our mutual aid spreadsheet. It's got a lot of links for petitions that still need to be signed, activists that are on the ground that need funds. There's like respirator funds, street medic funds, food kitchens, a lot of mutual aid links on there. So yeah, I would definitely, that's like the best way is to just get involved in mutual aid work because everybody can do that. Yeah. Think about starting one of those fridges. Those are popping off in Portland and NOLA. I've seen that too. Mm-hmm. I think the most important thing that 2020 has taught us is that nobody got us except for us. So if you're going to be waiting for, someone else to give you what you need, you should be looking to your neighbor. So let's just help each other and build each other up in 2021. I think we got this. Like, I'm really looking forward to next year. And I know a lot of people probably are like, damn, I can't wait for it to be over already. But I just feel like we have such a great group of like resistance. Like our resistance community is beautiful and resourceful and empowering, and we all love each other and help each other. And I've just seen it work in beautiful ways. And there's always a way to fight back. So
damn straight. Well, Tai, it was really nice having you. Thank you so much for spending your time here with me and sharing all your wisdom and knowledge amongst me and the readers and listeners. All right. Have a good day. Bye.
Kwekwe Sagidwin. Traveling with Bones is Indigenous Glass approved.
Traveling with Bones is Juice approved. Black Lives Matter, y'all.
Traveling with Bones is Fish Guts approved.
Metal meditation.